Thank you very much for joining us once again on PM Express. My guest tonight is the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo. I'm grateful again for joining us on PM Express.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me, Evans. It's always good to be with you.
Always. Since the last time we spoke, you've been very busy. Anti-Galamsey, Songo revival. You've done some revival at the Lands Commission, rebranding the place. Recently, together with the president, well, I was there when you started planting trees, 5 million trees you planted. And just 24 hours ago, you launched the Alternative Livelihood Employment Program. Pretty busy for what? In the space of 6 months or so since you were confirmed?
We're sworn in on 5th March.
5th March, okay.
Yeah.
Let's start with the last one, which recently occurred. You want to create 220,000 jobs. Is that the number?
Yeah, that is a conservative figure we are looking at. It may be more. But essentially what it is that, as you know, the president has been waging this crusade and prosecuting this strategy to sanitize the small-scale mining sector of the larger mining enclave. And the consequences of illegal small-scale mining, irresponsible small-scale mining, are, far-reaching. And I don't have to say that water bodies are being polluted, our forest cover is being depleted, and our land is getting degraded, and the use of mercury, cyanide is destroying the landscape of our country. So the president has been waging this battle to get to grips with the issue of illegal small-scale mining. As you know, we had a consultative dialogue on the 14th and 15th of April this year, out of which 15 resolutions were reached, and one of them was clearly unanimous agreement that we should sanitize this industry, and that the adverse consequences of the industry are far-reaching and transgenerational. So we've been working at that. And we've done a whole lot of Operation Halt, decommissioning of excavators, demobilizing of equipment used for illegal mining, generally cleaning up the sector. But the president recognizes that in so doing, it occasions unintended, unavoidable negative consequences on the employment and livelihoods of the people in these catchment areas. Essentially, the efforts we've made have been concentrated, predominant in 5 regions of our country. I think in the Western North, the Western region, the Central, the Eastern, and the Ashanti regions. And so President has come up with this policy. I mean, it's been a lot of work in the cabinet, within the government, lots of debate, structuring it, putting it together, trying to get funding for it, and so on and so forth. And eventually, mercifully, yesterday, the president led the government in Takwa to launch the National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program, which is a program the government is rolling out under the auspices of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources to provide alternative sources of employment and livelihood for miners, illegal miners, and miners in general, who will fall through the cracks as a result of the efforts of the government.
How do you propose to create these jobs?
Well, I make that point all the time. Responsible, regulated, environmentally sound, small-scale mining is an alternative to illegal, irresponsible, reckless, small-scale mining, which has no regard for the environment. As I say, it's been a long debate in the government as to what are the models, what should be the pillars or the anchors on which we seek to create these alternative jobs. And I've just given one of them, and I'm very passionate about that. The government is not against small-scale mining. Small-scale mining contributes almost 40% to Ghana's gold output. Ghana is the leading producer of gold in the whole of Africa, and they sit in the world. Small-scale mining contributes almost 40% of that output. And so if you organize small-scale mining, community mining, yesterday I talked about it, we're looking at ramping up community mining. Community mining being that it's community-based, it's responsible, they have functioning offices, they have sick bays, we have a register of all the miners. When they excavate, they reclaim the land, they revegetate, they don't use mercury, they don't use cyanide, and it's responsible. And therefore our gold output will go up. It creates employment for the miners, it contributes to the economy. At the same time, it preserves the environment. That's one. And then reclamation. the whole southern sector, the southern part of our country is almost degraded. I had the privilege of being flown around the southern part of our country by the Ghana Air Force. And you should see the level of devastation. The law is that when you mine, within 1 month, you have to reclaim the land and revegetate the land. But a lot of these miners have done the mining, they've caused a havoc, and they moved on. And you have nobody to account for it. And so one of the policies the government has put in place is to use reclamation as an anchor for alternative livelihood and employment in those catchment areas.
So the previously illegal miners will be now sort of reformed into reclaiming the same site that they destroyed.
For want of a better expression, a brigade to reclaim the lands. And so you're going to achieve multiple goals. One is that you reclaim the land, which is good. I mean, these are dug out areas, and in many cases, old ladies cannot visit their farms because of these pits. So you have a situation where you reclaim the land, you revegetate the land, it contributes to the forest cover, it contributes to the climate of our country. At the same time, the contractors or the persons who are going to be recruited to reclaim this land, there will be a caveat or there will be a clause which says that the target group of people who are to be employed for purposes of these reclamations ought to be people from the communities. And in many cases, we seek to target miners, people who are involved in illegal mining and who have been rendered jobless, if you want, brought on board to work and be involved in the reclamation of these lands. So that's two. Reclamation is two. Then revegetation, which is that we're going to have, my view, and that's the view the government is bought into, is that all the lands which are reclaimed, as much as possible, as much as practically possible, we should plant palm trees so that you are not just throwing the taxpayers' money into this alternative livelihood scheme, but you are also investing the money into economic ventures. So when you claim the land, you plant palm trees, and ultimately we can harvest the palm out of it, and that can feed into 1D, 1F, and so on. And the other models which we are going to roll out for alternative employment.
How are you funding this?
Central government for now. Central government for now. I mean, we've had series of meetings with the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Finance has been very gracious. They've been very supportive of this scheme, because I think that within the government there's a general understanding that we need to do this. This is so important because once you are, I mean, I'll give the example that the crackdown on illegal mining also has national security implications. I mean, so for instance, the young man is in a Sankregua or in Obuasi, and on a weekly basis, what they call break day, the day they break. I mean, when they work for like a week, and I think it happens on Thursdays, and this is the day when the kingpin or the master will assemble the young men in the pit, those who go into the pit to excavate and so on and so forth. And on a weekly basis, the man walks away with, say, 5,000 Ghana cedis, 10,000 Ghana cedis. And all of a sudden, government says, we are cracking down on illegal mining because of its impact on the environment. And that's obviously something that the government cannot shake a responsibility on. The government is duty bound to protect the environment of our country, even the constitution stipulates so. And so the government moves on and cracks down on illegal mining, as we are doing. These people are laid off. They are out of job. They are out of employment. A young man in his 20s who used to earn 5,000 Ghana cedis a week no longer gets even a cedi. You can imagine your inferences and your deductions may be as good as mine. It will have implications on the security of the area. It will have implications on national security. And so government recognizes that this alternative livelihood program may not be giving the miners the kind of income they used to get, but at least it will engage them, and they should be able to earn something reasonable. How much is it going to cost the state? Have we costed this already? We've costed it in phases. And so I'm reluctant to give out figures now, but it's quite significant. And what we're doing is to get a rollout which is on a quarterly basis. And so we have some reasonable funding to begin the program for this year. Where's the funding coming from? Well, as it stands now, between the Ministry of Finance and the Minerals Commission, they've been able to work something out of their IGF in terms of the capping. As you know, there is a capping law in our country where the Ministry of Finance can cap the amount of money any agency can retain arising out of its IGF. And so we've worked out a formula between the ministry, between Minerals Commission and the Ministry for Finance to be able to have some seed capital to begin. But as the President said in his statement, he's instructed the Ministry of Finance to make adequate budgetary allocation for the implementation of this scheme next year.
In 2019 July, the President launched the community mining program. How different is that from this one?
Well, you see, the thing about community mining, I mean, I've had occasion to speak to this many times. What is community mining? Community mining is another type of small-scale mining, really. That's essentially what it is. But in this case, instead of one person taking up a concession, okay, the law is that small-scale mining should not be more than 25 acres. That's the law. So you could apply to me, the Minister, Evans, that you wanted to be involved in small-scale mining. And I grant you 25 acres of concession. That makes you a small-scale miner. Anything beyond 25 acres, you are moving into the realm of large-scale mining. Now, individuals then in the past applied and got concessions of 25 acres and ran small-scale mining schemes by themselves as entrepreneurs or as miners. The state then is rolling out a policy which will have it that an area is demarcated, and in many cases an area which is largely mineralized. In other words, the state itself will spend money to conduct geological investigations to be ascertained that this place is mineralized. There's enough minerals there for us to use it as a concession for community mining. And then bring and put together miners in the community, aggregate them if you want, cooperative sort of, and then put them in this concession. The advantage, okay, so if you organize the community mining well, that actually is a panacea for dealing with small-scale mining in our country. But if you don't organize it well, it becomes another channel through which people can use to engage in galamsey, if you want. So if it's properly done, which is that it's regulated, the people behind it are known, they are responsible people. And what we have done, since I became minister, what we have done is that we've insisted on a prototype community mining to be developed by the Minerals Commission, which has been done, which is that what should a community mining have? What are the minimum requirements or standards of a community mining? So what we've come to agree on, what we've signed on to, is that community mining should, one, have an office, a functioning office with administrator, or, you know, all of the various minimum staff or technical people who will man a responsible mining operation. Okay, they should have an environmental officer on site or somebody with some knowledge of environmental preservation to be on site to ensure that the mining is done responsibly and is done in accordance with the protocols of the EPA and so on and so forth. And then we should have a database of the miners. That is so important. So we should know those who are involved in the mining. In fact, we've even stretched it to the point where we're saying that they should have a sick bay, for instance. So if somebody was to be unwell, or person can be taken to a sick bay and looked after. So if you structure it properly and in a regulated fashion, it can be a good model for dealing with small-scale. And I've had the opportunity of studying small-scale mining in several other places, South Africa, in Australia, in to some extent Canada, and so on. This is how they organize mining at the community level, and that is what we seek to do.
So the community mining policy is integrated into the current policy, the level of...
Yeah, sure. Okay. So as I said, I mean, I've just mentioned that responsible mining is an alternative to illegal mining. Yes. So the state itself, through the Minerals Commission and through the National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program Secretariat, is going to be at the center of organizing these community minings, these community mining operations and schemes to get, if you want, for want of a better expression, to get the boys and girls from the illegal mining space and bring them into community mining space. And I've seen it myself. I mean, as I said yesterday, I've toured literally the whole country.
So that policy is not dead? The one that the president launched in 2019 is not dead?
At all, it's not dead. It's just been revamped, it's been ramped up.
Is it the same that you've rebranded as the National Alternative Livelihood Employment Program?
No. The National Alternative Livelihood Program is larger than community mining. It's anchored on 6 pillars.
Which is what you outlined.
Which is why I've been talking about reclamation, community mining, apprenticeship, agro-processing.
But you mentioned something very important,
yes.
that the community mining, if not handled properly, allows people to sort of exploit it for illegal mining purposes. How are you addressing that with this latest policy?
Well, but the way to address that is not different from the way to address all the issues confronting our country in every sector. Supervision, accountability, keeping your eye on the ball, that's the only way. Because if you say community mining, and I sit here in my office and just grant concessions and say, those are community mining schemes, and then I stay in this office, they will most likely be turned into Galamsey sites. But if you grant concessions, community mining concessions, and you have a mechanism, you have a structure of monitoring and evaluation, the Minerals Commission is on top of its game, the Secretariat for Alternative Livelihood is also on top of its game, the bureaucracy at the ministry itself is on top of the ball, and you, the minister yourself, you are asking the right questions, you are following up. Surprise visits, for instance, is something I intend to be involved in, and if every now and again I get up and there's a community mining scheme, say in Seshi or whatever, you go and see for yourself and see how it's been organized, and you have a team that periodically moves around these mining operations to ensure. But that's not the only model for the alternative livelihood. It's one of them, and it's one which I believe can be a serious avenue for mopping up most of these illegal people involved in illegal.
So just to clarify, the community mining was purposely just to get those affected by the crackdown into a more responsible way of mining.
That is so.
This one is multifaceted. It has that as part of it, and then
five others,
yes, including the reclamation, afforestation,
agro-processing, agriculture, apprenticeship.
What would you say to those who say this is another avenue to give jobs to MPP foot soldiers across the country?
Really?
Many of them who were involved in illegal mining.
Why does anybody think so? The people in Western North are not all MPP. We are targeting Western North, Western region, Central region, Eastern region, Ashanti region. Those regions of our country are not populated by MPP people alone. We are targeting Ghanaians and miners. I mean, it's never crossed my mind anyway. But in the process, if MPP people get employed, why not? If NDC people get employed, why not? The people who are not partisan or do not affiliate themselves with any political party get employed, why not? I mean, it's not possible that the president will superintend over a program, a national program with taxpayers' money targeted at just MPP people. It's not targeted at MPP people or any political party. It's targeted at miners and the mining regions of our country, the 5 of them, and I've mentioned them to you.
Is your crackdown on illegal mining, Operation Halt, is it dead?
No, it's not dead at all. The thing about Operation Halt, I believe I should explain, is that the Operation Halt was a specific operation. The military people call it a surgical operation. It was never, ever intended to be a permanent wholesale operation. And from 5th of March to date, within the government and arising out of intense consultations within the government and under the leadership of the president and with his approval, we have a whole strategy for dealing with small-scale, illegal small-scale mining. It's a broad strategy, a multifaceted strategy, which we are prosecuting and implementing systematically. One of them was Operation Halt. And that operation was specific to rid the water bodies of our country of illegal mining. And it's never ceased. So Operation Halt was never intended to deal with illegal mining across the country. So if there was illegal mining happening outside the water bodies of our country, Operation Halt did not have a mandate to deal with. theirs was to go in, clear the water bodies of our country. Any mining operations 100 meters from the river bank was to be dealt with by Operation Halt. So Operation Halt was a surgical operation, and I think that has been largely successful. And even as we speak, every now and again, when we get intelligence, or when we receive intelligence or get reports of illegal mining taking place on the water bodies of our country, Operation Halt, the military people step in. The everyday mining, the everyday mining space in our country and the illegalities involved in them, the government is taking the view that the regional security councils be the arrowheads or be the fulcrum around which we prosecute our enforcement architecture or regime or effort. So if illegal mining was taking place at any other place other than the river bodies of our country, the RESEX have the mandate to step in. And I've had the occasion on the instructions of the president to travel across the country, and wherever I've been, I've had intense, detailed discussions with the regional security councils, and they are fully aware, they are very awake to it, and thankfully it appears that they are living up to the expectation and they are taking up the issues involved. The reason why we have had to take that view, Evans, in many cases, I mean, I observe, for instance, that when illegalities are being perpetuated in the mining sector of our country, somehow or rather is seen differently. When people break the laws relating to the mining sector, it's a criminal act. And the normal criminal architecture of our country should deal with that. So if people are wielding guns at concessions in the bush, and Minerals Commission officials cannot deal with it, they can't even visit them because their lives will be under threat, the national security apparatus will have to step in. If the military have to, they will step in. If the police have to, they should step in. So the flouting of the laws relating to mining have now been situated in its proper place. It's been put in its proper context, which is that they are criminal offenses which requires the action and interventions of the regional security councils of our country. And they are doing that now.
So the Operation Halt intervention, you've explained, it was to do specifically with the illegal mining in and around water bodies. Is that to suggest, we haven't heard that they are out since the last massive push. Is that to suggest that you're happy with the fact that there are no longer people mining in and around water bodies?
You know, this is the issue again. It is the mining sector and the issue to do with illegal mining, galamsey and all of that. I need to explain. You cannot deal with that conclusively overnight, Evans. It's not possible. I think it's important that we are all candid to each other and we are frontal about these issues. First of all, the situation we find ourselves in as a country when it comes to mining is systemic, it's age-old. I mean, we don't have the time to go through all the history, but it's been a consistent breakdown of regulation. The lack of regulation, as we are attempting to do now, has led us to where we are today. And it predates Akufo-Addo's government. It's years, since the 1980s through the 90s, and the history is there for anybody to appreciate. The matter to do with mining and illegalities involved in mining, and indeed the extractive industry generally, anywhere in the world, you are dealing with money. So gold is money. So the mining of gold is money. Just as the issues of fuel, fraud, petroling on our water bodies, it's all money. So people don't let go easily. And people continue to devise all kinds of strategies and mechanisms to outsmart the law enforcement agencies. So am I satisfied or not? I'm reasonably encouraged in respect to where we are headed as a ministry and as a government. If for nothing at all, the level of impunity is being dealt with considerably. So people today appreciate and believe that their actions will have ramifications. That is a very good signal. It is possible that as we speak, somebody is trying to mine on River Pra. It's possible. If that evidence was shown to me, I won't be totally surprised. But if there was a mining happening on River Pra or River Ofen and it came to our attention, we have a system in place which will respond to it immediately. That's the good news.
The soldiers will go back in?
The Operation Halt, Regional Security Council, and all kinds of measures we have in place will respond to swift. And we've had those kinds of situations before. River Ofen was the example. When it came to our attention, within 24 hours, the people who were reported to be mining on River Ofen were flushed out. That is good news. Whereas in the past, you had all the water bodies riddled with champagnes and they call it tutututu, and the mining was just happening brazenly without any fear of being arrested or clamped down or any sort. We are no longer in that kind of situation. That for me is a good, satisfactory first step. Operation Halt cleared the river bodies of our country to a very, very large extent. And we all saw it. The decommissioning of excavators, chamfines, the destruction that took place along the river bodies of our country, and the work the Ghana Armed Forces did is highly, highly commendable. And I think we have a great armed forces in our country. They did an excellent job. And they took us to a situation where now the regional security councils, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, the district security council, the municipal security councils, and national security, and all the various components of our national security architecture can begin to deal with the situations as they arise. For me, that is good news.
And very finally on this, you talked about the distraction that we saw. It generated a lot of controversy. Excavators were banned. With hindsight now, you regret any of that high-handedness as some have criticized it?
Well, first of all, I don't regret any of it at all, and I'm not too sure we are in the realm of regretting or not regretting, you know. And I'm not also too sure we are in the realm of high-handedness or not being high-handed. I'm not sure we're in that realm. It is just a question of the state and its government enforcing the laws of our country to preserve the environment of our country. A question was posed to me on the floor of Parliament, and I appeared before the House and gave the legal justification for the policy of the government.
And the president obviously had also intimated the same.
Yeah, the president actually set the pace, and I relied on his reasoning heavily. And the reasoning the president gave, the legal reason the president gave, for me is sound and totally tenable. And I did give a thorough legal justification for the action of government in this respect. And Evans, the Constitution is clear. It is Article 36 or so of our Constitution, which is very, very clear, which says that the state has a duty to preserve the environment of our country for posterity. Act 995 of Parliament, the act which deals with how we handle equipment used for illegal mining, is subservient to the dictates of the Constitution. And the totality of the legal regime of our country supports the action of government.
If you had the same opportunity, would you have taken the same approach today?
Well, I would do it. In any event, I think the other question we also have to ask ourselves, even, what will an excavator be doing on a water body? What will an excavator be doing on River Pra or River Ofin? And why are we also asking that very important ethical, moral question as to why some citizens, in conniving with foreigners, will take excavators, chamfines, and all kinds of equipment and chemicals to mine on the river bodies of our country? I've just not had the opportunity yet, but it will happen. I think that hopefully before the end of the year, if we are not successful at that, early part of next year, God willing, I intend to organize area tours for various stakeholders, various interest groups in our country, like media people like you, civil society organizations, chiefs, religious leaders, to have a tour. I took off from the Air Force Base, flew all the way through the eastern region, went through Ashanti, went through Central, went to Western region, went to Western North, and it's heartbreaking. The water bodies of our country are polluted, and people keep making the point that you'll be judged on, that I'll be judged as a minister, and for that matter, the president and his government will be judged based on the color of the water bodies of our country. With the greatest of respect, I disagree with that test. Because the water bodies which have been polluted for all these years, and the scientists tell us that you require an almost a decade or so of no activity on the water bodies. And there've even been a debate within the government and within the scientific community of our country whether or not we should put in place interventions to clean the water bodies of our country. I mean, some people have said, let it clean itself organically, if you want. In other words, don't introduce any chemicals at all. And don't introduce alon or any other chemicals to get the particles to settle. Let the particles settle by themselves over a period of time. And some scientists, some experts have told me it can take as long as a decade. With that, and that is assuming there's no further disturbance in terms of mining for all the river bodies of our country to settle down. And so this is where we find ourselves. I mean, what is important is that we stay the course, we remain focused, disciplined, and do this with a sense of integrity. For me, that is important. If there's anything that I've learned out of this effort we are making, integrity is key, because if you say no prospecting, no recognizance in forest reserves, and then you turn around and because of some other considerations, you grant a permit for people to engage in recognizance and prospecting in a forest reserve, then you descend from the moral high ground and you have a problem. So that is really where we are, and the most important thing is for us to stay. Of course, some of the river bodies are beginning to flow. That's a good sign. In the past, the river bodies will not even flow. They were so silted that they were stagnant. Now they are beginning to flow. That's a good sign.
I want to take a quick break. When I return, we'll get into other matters. I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, he's been pretty busy. He's been reviving salt production. He's been involved in the re-energizing of the Lands Commission. So stay with me. Everything Lands and Natural Resources we'll be talking about here on PM Express with the minister responsible for the sector. And thank you for staying with us. We are still on PM Express. I'm talking to the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abu-Jinapor. Mr. Jinapor, let's talk about lands.
An MP for Damongo.
An MP for Damongo. We'll talk about that. There's been a lot of activity in your constituency and in the political landscape of the MPP. We'll come to that shortly. But let's talk about lands. Recently, I've listened to the Chief Executive Lands Commission talk about some reforms that you had initiated that, of course, he's implementing. Fundamentally, the frustration you hear people talk always all the time is acquiring land in Ghana. It's just an act of being through hell. You want to do something about that. The question to you is, why do you believe you will succeed where almost everybody else before you seem to not have cracked it?
Why shouldn't we succeed? That should be the question. It's the other way around. Why shouldn't we succeed? It is not just about me. Let's always, it's important I point that out. It's the government that is working, and all the parts of the government are playing its role to make sure that we move forward. Now, you cannot achieve the kind of economic status we seek for ourselves, have strong economic growth, have prosperity, unleash prosperity, create jobs, get the economy working, without an effective land administration. And within the government, there is a clear understanding that we need to be able to organize an effective land administration in our country to become a catalyst for economic growth. And the president is very insistent on that. The Minister for Finance and several departments of the government are working closely with my ministry to make sure that we deliver that.
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I have spoken to a lot of your predecessors, and we all make the same point. In the end, the problems persist. What's different? What's different under Samuel Abu-Jinapor?
We will move the machine further down the road. There's no two ways about it. I'm not suggesting that I'll resolve all the land issues in 3 years. It's just not possible. Neither can the president deal with all the land issues in 3 years. But we will certainly take the machine further down the road. A lot has been done already, no two ways about it. A lot of reforms is taking place at the Lands Commission, and a good number of interventions have taken place. But we are taking some very extraordinary steps. I mean, for example, working with the Executive Secretary of the Lands Commission, we came to the realization that the various divisions of the Lands Commission churned out search results independently. So if you wanted to buy...
No interconnected.
No interconnection. So if you wanted to buy a parcel of land and you went to the Lands Commission itself and conducted a search, you get one result. If you go to land title, you conduct a search, you get another result. You go to another department of the Lands Commission, you conduct a different result. So you can go and conduct a search in respect of a parcel of land as a Lands Commission. It tells you that Mr. Evans Mensah has a title or has an interest, a leasehold interest in this parcel of land. You go to land title and it says that Mr. Abu Jinapo has, and you may not have gone to all the divisions to conduct the searches. And therefore, you may have conflicting search results. Just by a fiat, from October 1st this year, from 1st of this month, we have rationalized and harmonized these searches in the Lands Commission, which is meant that when you conduct a search, you get one result. In other words, Lands Commission title and the rest will have to speak to each other through a mechanism. And the results that will be given to you will be the results you would have received from each of the divisions of the Lands Commission. That has been done, it's been implemented as we speak. I make the point to the Executive Secretary and the management of the Lands Commission all the time that yes, there's a need for investment, the big ticket intervention we are seeking to make, digitization of the records of the Lands Commission, and generally digitize the Lands Commission. I mean, they say digitize and digitalize. In other words, transform the records of the Lands Commission from analog to a digitized system, and also have a system which will ensure that the digitized records can be used properly in a way that serves the purpose of the public. That requires a lot of investment. But to have a system where people walk into the Office of the Lands Commission and receive a smile from a receptionist or an official of the Lands Commission, I think that just requires management and leadership keeping their eye on the ball and ensuring that everybody plays their role, making sure that people come to work at a particular time and leave at a particular time. All of those things are matters that may require some investment, but not so monumental investment. And I keep making the point that the Lands Commission is supposed to see itself as a service provider, just like going to any corporate institution in our country, private sector, and they rendering a service to you, and whether or not you are satisfied with the service they render to you. So the Lands Commission is to be positioned in that context, that they are rendering a service. There is one major effort we are making, and the work has gone very far. And I'm very convinced that if we get that correct and we implement that properly, it will change the face of land administration, which is we are in the advanced stage of a public-private partnership, which is going to bring in on board a private player to make considerable investments, hundreds of millions of US dollars, and which will result in the digitization of all the records of the Lands Commission across the country, and which will bring the ICT infrastructure and bring physical infrastructure. Generally just restructure the whole Lands Commission of our country and have the situation where the records of the Lands Commission, which goes as far back as the 19th century, all of those being digitized and transferred from analog to a digitized platform, which can be used for land administration in our country. I mean, for example, let me conclude on Lands Commission. I was completely shocked to learn that as far back as 1974, when we had an aerial mapping of our country, we haven't had an aerial mapping of Ghana since then, 1974. It's going to happen under this scheme. What it means is that...
And the private partner is going to fund this?
It's going to fund that, but it's a whole complex, detailed relationship arrangement, which has gone to the PPA already at the first instance, which has gone through the process and come to my office here and has been examined, interrogated. It is now before... No, not at all. Yeah, competitive. Is now, value for money can be taken for granted. The process we are going through is going to ensure that we have value for money. Consultants are examining all of that. It's now before the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance is going through it line by line, scrutinizing it properly. The Attorney General is looking at the contract. When that is done, we go back to PPA. And all the issue, as for value for money, that's not an issue. But the most important thing is that we revolutionize land administration in our country.
You planted 5 million trees yourself, and of course you led it. What's the plan there? What's happened to the trees? Are they being... I planted one myself, so...
How is it doing? Let's start from there.
I can show you a picture of mine. It's growing very well, actually.
Show it. Let it be shown on PMS. That's the challenge I'm
absolutely.
I'm
mine is grown.
The next edition of your program, I'll watch it. Take a video and show it.
I took a picture of it just yesterday.
Okay.
You did too with your children.
Mine is right
here.
Yeah, my house is doing well. The one on the street here at the ministry.
But on a more serious note, there was 5 million of them across the country.
We did 7 million in it.
7 million, okay.
We targeted, the target was 5 million. We ended up with 7 million. And clearly I can say confidently that the trees are doing very well. There's no two ways about that. We put in place a very robust monitoring mechanism, which has been monitoring how well the trees are doing all this while. And the reports I've received suggest that they are doing very well. And myself, whatever I've visited in the country, and I've done 11 regions already, and whatever I've visited, I take it upon myself to see some of the plantation sites. And clearly, the trees are doing very well. Don't forget that we had a very short period of time to plan and execute this. So there were a few hitches here and there are a few lessons we've learned out of. For instance, one of the major lessons we've drawn from the 2021 Green Ghana Day is that planting in the cities by people haphazardly, in many cases doesn't work because they just plant it and they move on. They don't fence it, they don't look after the trees. So if you have degraded land sites and you get people to go and plant at the degraded land sites, then you can have true forest reserves and enclaves, which you can monitor and make sure that the
that's what's
trees
going to happen next
So
year.
all of that, we're going to take all of that into account.
Let's do some politics now. Your party, in the last few weeks, has been the talk of town because everybody wants to succeed the man behind you, who obviously is exiting. The party has been in its original conferences. And from all the reports that we're getting, it's become a ground for jostling. What's your take on what's happening in your party? And some are very afraid what's going to happen post Nana Ado's era. It's almost going to be a free scramble for everybody going back to 2007 scenario where we all saw what played out at the University of Ghana. What's your own take on what's happening?
Well, first of all, I think that my view is that we need to all work together, come together to consolidate the legacy of President Akufo-Addo. The history of the Fourth Republic and the electoral history of the Fourth Republic is made it crystal clear that you cannot move forward if you don't have a strong base. It's just as obvious as day will come after night. And it's important that we all appreciate that. If we don't have a strong platform, you can be the candidate, you can, whatever it is, you can't cross that hurdle, especially when you are trying to do a third term. No party in Ghana has done a third term since 1992. It must not be lost on us as a political party. So it means that we require an extra effort to cross that hurdle. I don't suggest that we cannot. I think we can. But it requires some reality checks and being real with ourselves.
Is that being undermined by what is going on?
Well, I'll get there. I think the president has laid a strong foundation for the party. There's no two ways about it. The president has laid he has a strong legacy. I appreciate all the debate that goes on. But my humble, respectful view is that President Akufo-Addo has laid a strong foundation. He became the candidate of our party in 2008, led us strongly into that election. We couldn't win. He never wavered, stood strong. 2012, he came, he never wavered. And the party, I think that the MPP should be very grateful for the kind of leadership he offered and led the party against all odds and gave us that resounding victory in 2016. And 2020 is giving us a second term. So whatever a president has to do in terms of the politics, he's done it. In terms of the governance, all the issues, whether it's in the field of education. We are not in a honey and milk situation in Ghana. Nobody should delude themselves into suggesting so. There are challenges as we speak. There are people who are looking for employment who may not find it. Some people are trying to access health care. They may not be able to do it. Some people may be going through hardships. There's no two ways about it. I don't suggest that we've gotten to a situation where everything is being resolved in our country. But clearly, the fundamental pillars of true economic and societal transformation have been or are being laid by the Akufo-Addo administration. So what should be the way forward? The way forward is for all of us to be disciplined, Evans, as party people. That's as simple as that.
Do you sense indiscipline in your party?
Well, I don't sense that, but we need to be mindful of that. From polling station to the presidential candidature elections, we have to be disciplined and we have to be mindful. We have to be mindful of the potential consequences of indiscipline.
Which could be what?
So the rules are spelled out. We should follow the rules. We are going to have polling station election results in January. Thereafter, we're going to have constituency, electoral area constituency, regional, national, and presidential candidates. What is important is that come 7th December 2024, the MPP emerges victorious in that election. In that historic, very consequential election, the MPP emerges victorious. Emerges victorious for the country so that the program of the MPP can continue to be implemented for the benefit of the Ghanaian people. The most important is that we are disciplined. In all the contests we are going to have, it's just one person who can win. It will be one presidential candidate for the MPP.
Some have said, if it's not Alan, it is Bawumia. Where do you stand on both?
None of them have declared their intentions to contest anyway.
But you know they will contest.
Well, they will contest, but the most important, I have excellent relations with each of them.
Are you pitching your camp?
No, I have a lot of respect for each one of them. I have an excellent relationship with both of them. I think either of them will be a great candidate for our party to win the elections. But the most important thing is that we remain disciplined and keep the party together. Like the president has said, the president himself has said it, that he's not going to take sides. He's going to ensure that the rules...
Is he?
He said it, and I believe what he said.
He's in his interest. His legacy is at stake.
The president is so committed to the MPP succeeding MPP. It's just not a joke. He's
yeah, but that determines that is dependent on who becomes your face in 2024.
Well, but it will
that's
also,
why his interest is
it will also very much depend on how the field looks. If
should he have a favorite, a horse in the race?
It will be utopian to suggest that. I mean, he will not have an assessment of those who will be contesting. But that's one thing. And manifestly supporting one is another. Or creating a situation where some may feel unfairly treated is another. The most important thing is that we always remember the MPP first, the party first. For me, that is my view. And that means all of us playing our role, contributing our quota to ensure that we're able to mobilize the mass of the Ghanaian people to cross the hurdle.
But the party is going to come up against John Mahama. This is a man who you beat severely, heavily in 2016. Historic margins, 1 million votes. 4 years on, he was gone, down and out. 4 years on, he comes back, reduces it, clears of 500,000 votes. That is, most people say, and manages to lead the party to reduce your numbers in parliament to the point where you're almost equal in the House. Momentum, they say, is firmly in the corner of the NPP. The win is in the
NPP indeed.
Sorry, in the NDC. Momentum from all the stats say John Mahama and the NDC have the momentum going in 2024. That must definitely give you sleepless nights.
Well, but don't look at some other statistics. Okay, first of all, I don't believe in complacency in politics. And therefore, I don't dismiss President Mahama as a candidate. And for that matter, any other candidate, whether it's Dr. Kobnado IV or President Mahama, I don't dismiss any of them, or Kojo Bonsu, I don't dismiss any of them in terms of the politics. I think we need to take them as though they are the hardest nut for us to crack.
On an interesting light note, very interesting family. Your family interest.
Oh, John and I again.
Yes. I mean, so this is the thing I've always wondered. You are the Lands and Natural Resources Minister. He's the ranking on the Lands and Natural Energy.
He's energy and mines.
Mines and energy.
Mines and energy.
Okay, part of which he has supervisory jurisdiction over you.
Yes.
How do you guys relate on that?
Well, the thing about John.
Has he hopefully have scrutinized you before? You've come before his committee before?
Yes. Yes.
How does that relationship play out?
Well, but the thing about John and I is that, I don't know how to explain it. We are both stuck in our ways, Evans.
So you are stuck in MPP, stuck in MPP?
Yes, and we've always been. We've always been. I mean, that's...
How do you keep a straight face when you come before him, before his committee?
I'll always be his brother, don't forget.
Say again?
I'll always be his brother.
I know, but this is
just as he always be my brother. But you see, the point is that we are totally committed, at least I am, fiercely. And I think he is too. So for me, it's not different for me appearing before a committee where the minority leader is asking me a question, or the deputy minority leader or another ranking member asking me a question. It's really not different. The most important thing, really, is that we deal with each other as gentlemen, just as I'll deal with any other NDC person as a gentleman, with decorum, with dignity. But hold our positions and hold it passionately. And any careful observer of our involvement in Ghanaian politics we realize that since 2008 to date, we've all held to our position very strongly in every election. I've always wanted MPP to win. Why not? I don't want him to be here. That's the lighter side.
No, I mean, how can you say that about our brother? He should be there.
He should be.
It should be. You want him to be in opposition?
They should be there. We being in government will help the people more. Don't worry.
Anyway. Does your mother sometimes worry about the two of you?
They used to.
Okay,
they used to at the time. But I think we've grown, we've matured.
Okay.
Yeah, they used to. Those days, we used to have a bit of heated arguments.
Your mother had to come in to separate you?
No. We've never got into that point.
Okay.
We've never got into that point at all. But in those days, I mean, long ago, we used to be, even when we lived together under the same roof, we used to argue quite a bit. But at this stage, we've kind of, held our own a bit.
I'm grateful. Always good talking to you.
Evans, thank you for having me.
Okay. Enjoy the rest of your evening. That's the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Bujana, my guest on PM Express.